me start again. So I'm here with Boston Ballet dancers, Paolo, Derk, Dunn, and Isaac Akiba, who collaborated in the creation of this really remarkable short film, White Swan. Paolo was the choreographer and the director. Derk was a dancer within that, and I'm sure a collaborator in terms of movement, which we can get to in terms of your process. And Isaac Akiba was, who's also a dancer with Boston Ballet, filmed the film. So he was behind the camera. And we saw this 2 weeks ago. Was it like 2 weeks ago, you guys, that this was released? And immediately, I was talking to Sam Mendoza, who's one of the producers of our art symposium, The Art of Overcoming. And he was like, what about this film? And I saw that Isaac was the person who was behind the camera who actually spent 2 years at Boston Arts Academy. So I immediately was like, let's get these guys on into the art symposium and have a conversation with them about their process. That was 2 weeks ago. And I want to say that within the Boston arts community, we've been having a lot of conversations about race within this country, in art, in the intersection of both of those. And I think it's important that we take a moment just at the beginning of this conversation to maybe talk to you, Paolo, Derk, and Isaac, about your thoughts and reactions to the recent momentum that Black Lives Matter has received due to the violence against Black people in this country, and most recently, George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. So I was wondering if any of you would like to just comment on that momentum, because I've had conversations with young dancers, and they're like, yes, these things very different. So would any of you like to contribute to that?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Paolo, I'll go after you.
What I really, I'm seeing a big difference between in this movement is almost a tipping point of communities from all over. I mean, the protests are really happening all over the world, and we are coming together as one to give a voice to the Afro-descendant race that is being suppressed for a really long time. And we need to do we started conversations, for example, yesterday in a Zoom call, town hall with Boston Ballet. Those voices were heard strongly. And I think we are at that tipping point where enough is enough. And even though it's very uncomfortable to talk about that, we need to really start and educate ourselves and take the back seat and really put the Afro-descendants on the front seat, because for a really long time, they've been suppressed. And I would say we have a duty to pay as white people when it comes to that. And enough is enough. And it was a powerful meeting yesterday that I was a part of, where we allow the African-American dancers and workers at Boston Ballet to really speak up. And it was uncomfortable, but so necessary for us to move forward. Yeah.
Isaac, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like this is different because there is this huge kind of overwhelming sense of community behind these protests. You see people from all different colors and creeds really come together and say, like Paolo was saying, you know, this is enough. Like it's actually past that point. But I think what has brought us here is actually technology and being able to spread information and film these brutal police attacks on the Black community. And that's really put it in the forefront of our minds. And, you know, when non-Black people, white people see those things, you know, Black people have been seeing it in their communities. And when we see it, you know, actually on our screens, it's important for us to stand behind Black Lives Matter, Black people, our friends, our family, our community, and come together. And that's, I think, why it feels different.
Yeah, I've also been having a lot of conversations with our students And a lot of our students, particularly students of color, are saying, this has been going on for a long time, and this is one instance. So the conversation we're having is, how do we continue with this conversation? And don't forget about it by the distracting things, other distracting things that are happening in the world, and just keep this something that is coming back all the time. So we're continually revisiting this. I'm really impressed that Boston Ballet, that you all had that meeting. And I want to say, like, I was going to get to this at the end of our conversation, but I would like to mention it now because I've seen all of you perform brilliantly, and we brought the kids to see you perform brilliantly. And thank you for that. But also there's this thing where I see in the work and in the company that Boston Ballet has been going through a transformation over the past few years. And I think the fact that you had this meeting really speaks to this idea of transforming into something different. And I'm not sure if any of you would want to comment on that or have anything to say about that, but that's something that I've seen, I've observed.
I think I can chime in on that. Just kind of to add on to what we were talking about already with this meeting that we had yesterday. It was really important that these people were given voices, because I think these issues are so deeply rooted, even in arts institutions, that there's a difference between like inclusivity and then actually diversifying a company. I think we need to, and we talked a lot about this yesterday in our meeting, just different ways to create more diversity. And that includes outreach, and that includes going to different communities that don't have access to what we have access to every day. Like, we're not going to change it by just changing the surface of it. We have to really go into the depths of this issue. And I think that having that conversation yesterday was really great as an organization, just to get the ball rolling. But like you said, we have to continue this conversation and make sure that it becomes more of a priority than it already is.
Yeah, so much work must be done.
So do you think, I'm sure you believe this, but why do you think it's really important for artists like you all to continue to create at this time?
I like to think that life imitates art. So as a voice, we need to represent and to have a voice, and to get where we got up to this point, where we can reach a large public with our creativity. I think is important to create things that mirrors that a little bit, and by doing that we can create a protest within the art form. We can create a brighter future within new pieces, because a lot of people say life imitates art imitates life, but I think when life imitates art is also a very powerful statement.
That is powerful. And then I want to bring up your actual work, because I loved what you did, and I saw it as more than just creating a dance and being in an environment more about quarantine. I felt like it was you took this iconic piece of music, this iconic subject matter, and you made it very intimate. So you took this thing that we've seen on stage several times, portrayed in different ways. You know, we've seen Swan Lake presented in many different ways, but you created an intimacy. And I don't want to say it was activism, because maybe that wasn't your point of view. You could have just been all three of you creating this art form, but I saw it as an activism piece. And I would like it if you all three of you could maybe just take a moment to reflect on that, comment on that, maybe feed off of each other, riff a little bit on that idea of the subversiveness of activism, and this idea of taking these masterworks and, you know, rethinking them.
Yeah, I am a part of a minority, and I am a foreign in this country, and I am a homosexual man. And for the past I think it was not until I worked with Wayne McGregor in a piece we did a few years ago, Obsidian Tear, which was nine male dancers on stage. And there was this long duet between two male dancers in the beginning, and it was a love story, it was a gay love story. And I felt represented. And I returned to the point where we worked so hard to get to where we are. And I think it's my duty to represent my community. A few years ago, that famous Hollywood movie came out, Call Me By Your Name. And there was one movie that came out and had that Hollywood momentum. We need to put our voices out there and represent and put more work like that. And going back to life imitates art, the more we put in the public, the more we get, the more people get comfortable seeing two male dancers dancing that intimately. Maybe we can create a better future. When it comes to discrimination, when it comes to the unknown, when it comes to the discomfort of the viewer, and be an activist and not so creating heteronormative work all the time. I think is my duty, and I will push for always creating queer art.
Derk, how much of the creating of the choreography was collaborative, was generated through improvisation? And then I want to get to talk to you, Isaac, about your perspective as the cameraman.
So I would have to say that the creative side of this was really Paolo, but it was collaborative in a sense that you know, we were working in my apartment in like a very small setting, and so we were also working as equals. And I think that a lot of times in the ballet world, there is like a hierarchy that we have to follow, or like there's someone at the front of the room creating, or, you know, kind of that person that really is in control. And, you know, not only do I respect Paolo as a choreographer and a very intelligent, creative person, but he's also my boyfriend. So I think we worked very closely together, and I think we communicated, you know, more honestly with each other, which made the process more collaborative, because it wasn't just so like it wasn't the traditional hierarchy that you might follow in a normal ballet setting, I guess. You know,
I appreciate when you're talking about the hierarchy, because when we're going to have this conversation, I was like, well, he's a principal dancer. He's just, you know, like, what is your where are you hierarchically? Is that the word? Within the ballet community. And I love that you kind of we just breaking that down, because I think that's part of the bigger issue, right? It's that, and I think everything has a hierarchy to it, but then I think it's this idea of, well, who has the power in the room, right? Who has the power in the room? And I always have that in my head. When I'm the teacher, so I'm in the front, am I really the person who needs to be in control? So it's like, when do we step back? When do we step forward? And I appreciate you talking about the small space, because I think our art changes in terms of our own personal context, right? So if you're in a small, intimate space, what is your art like there? Because I've seen you all on the massive stage, right, taking that. But then how does that change in the size of your space, change the intimacy and the nuances of what you're doing in the relationship? So I think that was represented brilliantly within what you did. And Isaac, I wanted to talk to you about the point of view behind the camera, because I want to say, like, so I'm a big fan of FX TV shows, and, you know, Michael Murphy, is that his name? And the idea of who is behind the lens really dictates sort of the power of what is being filmed. And I'm wondering if this crossed your mind at all while you were filming. And I really loved the outside in perspective and how you filmed that. So could you just talk a little bit about your perspective as the person who actually documented it?
Sure. Well, I'm really happy Paolo involved me in this. And I think that, you know, Paolo came in with these really strong ideas of what he wanted and the mood, the atmosphere he wanted to create. Paolo came up with this idea of being outside and kind of scanning through the clouds, and then the camera coming into the window as if that was the viewer, a person being invited into a home during a shelter in place, instead of coming in through a door, which are closed right now, coming through windows, which are open. And I thought that was a beautiful idea, and we were able to do that with practice. Paolo actually filmed it outside. We went over to get together what we should catch in the frame, coming through, pivoting, and then coming into the window, and how that was going to be framed. I was standing inside the room, and with a stabilizer that was attached to my phone, we were able to exchange the camera with keeping a single shot. So it really felt like you were entering. It took us a couple of times to practice that and to nail it down, but we were really happy with how it looked. And then again, I said to Paolo, I was like, well, maybe we should cut this up. Maybe we should go at different angles and maybe close and then far, then edit it so it's popping in and out. And Paolo said, no, I want this as to be a one shot. And, you know, I think I really realized how good of an idea that was. It's different than usually how dance is filmed. So once I took that, and I just kind of, I was just like, I said to myself after trying a couple of times, I was like, simple, the more simple, the better. And so I would take it and I would rotate it a little bit, really trying to keep it simple. And then when that scene kind of ends with Derek in the kitchen, really trying to frame things, not just Derek, but frame things in the shot in a nice way. And I grew up with photography being a part of my life. You can see kind of back here, my father was a well-known Boston photographer, and my mom's also a photographer. So I kind of, you know, have this like inherent sense of things being in a frame. So I really tried to keep that in the back of my head while I was shooting Derek and Paolo dance. With that transition from the middle room into that last part of this scene, we just wanted to have a smooth transition, something simple. And a lot of the times, you know, simple is better. People want to be a little bit too complicated, and the focus gets interrupted. And then, you know, in that last scene, we tried it a couple different times. We realized that the lighting wasn't right in one position, so we had to switch. We had to turn the choreography into a different way, so the windows were behind me because there was so much sun coming in, so we could really see the dancer's face. And then again, I just tried to be simple as possible, really small movements, like kind of what Derek was saying. We all contributed to, hey, where do you think that when Derek is leaning on Paolo's leg, what position should the camera be in, so we really see that long line of the body? So we all talked about that. Took, you know, 8 to 10 takes, and we were able to collaboratively kind of create this really beautiful scene and setting where our message really got across.
Well, as dancers too, we're sort of looking through our eyes architecturally every day. It's about line, it's design, it's about math, it's about all that. Right. But what really impressed me is, it's like Billy Wilder, who's like the old famous Hollywood director. If you ever saw, what is it? It's a Wonderful Life. You know, it's like about simplicity, simple messages. And I really like that final moment with you guys, with one head resting on the other head. That's the final moment, right? It's just like really beautiful and just wraps it up in a really beautiful way. But what I'm hearing you saying is that almost like these limitations of doing this during this quarantine in restricted spaces really in some ways having those parameters benefited the project. You agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think, yeah, we just kept it really simple. That's been the choreography is complicated. I mean, they're lifting each other, sure. and there was a lot of times where both of them were falling to the ground, you know, getting used to dancing on the carpet and on the floor. And, you know, Paolo kicked my TV at one point, and we had a good laugh about that. So.
but then yet there's the cat just like looking out the window. So I was like, yeah, this cat has seen a lot of dance. So like that, like nothing flusters, nothing flusters the cat. And I remember that both your parents were photographers. And I was like, oh yes, this makes sense. When I saw your name, I was like so excited to see that. So this has been a great conversation. I just want to touch on a few more things. And I could talk to you forever, but I want to talk about the musicians, right? So you had Alita Kang, who's concert master of BSO, and Jessica Zhu, who played the harp. Did I say those names correctly? Could you talk a little bit about that collaboration and how that came together? Because I thought that was also brilliant.
I think it's Jessica Zhao, right?
Oh, Jessica Zhao. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry, Jessica.
Actually, Elita was the one that started with the idea. I was contacted by Miguel from the Boston Ballet Orchestra, and he got me in touch with her. She said that, hey, I love the ballet. I want to do a shelter in place video collaboration, and I want to include dance in it. And she said, we're going to play the beginning of the White Swan pas de deux because it requires minimum orchestration, just a harp, the cadenza, and the violin that comes after. And I thought to myself, I was like, wow, that's great because I've danced this ballet many times and I know the music really well. And then not to say that they are world-class musicians. They are top-notch on their field. And when we got their audios and when Elita Kang sent hers first, right? And she's playing with the BSO closed. And I thought I was extremely touched by her work, but also it humbled me, the fact that someone like her asked me to collaborate with her in this project. It kind of, I was like, I need to do a good job. They have been a joy to work with, not only the musicians, but the team and the BSO, because this started as an artist collaboration. And we were like, oh, just for fun. We don't have a timeline. And we realized, me and her, we realized that we need to contact Boston Ballet and Boston Pops because this can be a really good momentum for two big arts organizations to collab for real. We don't do that often. It's been a dream of mine to dance with the BSO. I think Isaac performed at Tanglewood 3 years ago. Isaac?
2 years ago.
Yeah, and it was stunning. I loved watching it. So then we went from there, and it took really a village to make it happen.
So I hope that this can, spark new inspiration to continue to do those sorts of collaborations. We already talked as soon as this video was released. We briefly were like, we need to keep this going and add on to it, and that would be great. And like you said, maybe once we're back into our normal schedules or the new normal, but we can perform once again, like doing this for real would be awesome in a theater setting. So I think that for now, like you said, I hope that these sorts of projects continue to be inspired to happen, because I think that it's a great way to keep us all connected in the arts world.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And then I just have one more question for you before we wrap up. And that is something that we, over the past week, have been finishing all of our meetings with, both with kids and with adults. So we've had several meetings this past week. And the question is, could you name one thing that can be done at either the individual level or community level that you would be willing to take action with? So it's like naming one action step, either individually or at the community level, that you would be willing or could think of taking at this point, particularly in response to the Black Lives Matter movement and where it's gone.
Sure. I guess I'll go first. I think at an individual and community level, we can all do more to make our world a better place. I think this time is a great time to really reflect on ourselves and ask ourselves, what are we doing to improve our society? I think, as dancers, with kind of this platform that we have through Boston Ballet and just through ourselves, we can take the initiative to volunteer our time and work on projects that are inclusive and have a direct effect and uplift people in our communities. Just yesterday, after the Boston Ballet meeting about what as a company we could do, I realized that I could do more. So I'm going to work more closely with Boston Ballet's outreach programs, City Dance, more specifically, and try to uplift our community in that way and share dance in the communities that don't necessarily have so much access to dance. So I'm gonna on an individual basis work on that, and I think that will affect the greater community in the short term and the long term.
Beautiful.
I think I would say integrate in every level, in your, within the family, within your circle of friends, at work. Really try to mix and become one and desegregate, because it is so deep rooted. And vote.
Vote.
And also just continue to educate ourselves and to have these difficult and sometimes uncomfortable conversations, because no growth is going to come out of staying comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I think we can do that with ourselves, and we can also do that with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's brilliant. A lot of the conversations I have with students this week, because some feel like there's no hope. And then we had a conversation about policy and legislature, and then I saw Tito Jackson on the news, out with the protesters, reeling everybody in, creating a sense of community, and talking about exactly that, the policy, the legislature. So it is about that political action, and then also that kind of grassroots action where you're just out there in the community and connecting with people. And yeah, beautiful work, you guys. You're so talented. You're so smart. And I really appreciate your commitment. I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you being part of The Art of Overcoming. And we're now going to show your film. So thank you, bravo. And I can't wait to get back and see you all in the theater. I hope that's going to be happening soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.